So yes, I joined VMware about 1.5 years ago as a grad as well. So this year is my, I guess, transition out of the grad program and just a full-fledged associate solution engineer. That's my title,
Okay.
solution engineer. And yeah, so it's, like I think there's only one of you here, but you can always ask questions as I go through it. It's not at all like a presentation.
Sure.
Um, so about VMware, I don't know how much you know about it, but basically, to make it simple, we are a software company and we power the digital transformation for a lot of the enterprises out there, and trying to transform the infrastructure that runs the IT services for these enterprises, with the goal of making the world a better place.
Yeah.
Currently, we are a $10 billion company, but we want to be $20 billion company eventually. We have 31,000 employees globally and 50 offices in over 50 countries. And yeah, our customers are from, all of the different backgrounds, all of the industries. It's not one single industry that that our software cannot run or has not touched. So have you heard of VMware before?
Yeah, I have, but honestly, I haven't done a huge amount of research
Yeah,
until the careers fair.
that's
Um,
it's
yeah.
very actually a technical. From my perspective, anyways, VMware is very technical. So not a lot of people would be aware of it unless you have worked in a data center before. It's not to say that we're not big or comparable to Microsoft or Google, for example. It's the market and the audience that we often face is different to the end users, but we're getting there. I think we're doing a pretty good job at trying to reach you guys. So this is quite important actually. Yeah, next slide, Kalani. So as an employee of VMware myself, I can testify that our software does work. It has worked and it has been proven as a solution design. And not to say that because it has worked, we're not trying to innovate ourselves. That's actually what we're trying to do on a day-to-day basis, is to continuously innovate what we have had before, using emerging technologies like AI and the power of data. And to use that, we are trying to, I guess, shape the way IT is moving forward in the coming years and decades. We're actually very successful for this reason, because we try to solve the problems that people don't tend to want to solve. And if you could go to the next slide as well. So now I actually will explain to you what the software actually is. You might be anxious about that, but it's basically, if you think of your university, for example, it could be Melbourne University, it could be Macquarie University or Monash, or any sort of big institutions would have a data center. The way I think of a data center without a technical background is it's like a supercomputer, right? So you have internet network within your institution, and you probably want to access them, when you're on premise, or, even when you're off premise, you still want to use the applications that run on, that your institution is offering. So all of this traffic would need to be processed somewhere, and this supercomputer that's the job that it would have to do, right? So that's where our software sits. So basically, not only that, our software powers these digital transformation or power digital foundation, it also extends outside of the premises that that you guys attend. So you can imagine that without our software, these supercomputers can't really do much. So it's quite critical, as you can imagine. Next slide, Kalani. So by breaking through with our technology, better technology and solutions, we've attracted very powerful partners in innovation. And the companies that are making the biggest difference in our industry these days have one thing in common with us, is that they are working to accelerate the digital transformation. So on these slides, name a few, there's Microsoft, Google, IBM, AWS, Alibaba, and Dell are all part of our strategic partners. And so our partner ecosystem is ever reaching. We actually have over, I think, 10,000 partners, but obviously they're quite small and boutique as well around the world. So it's very hard to name all of them, but these would be, I would highlight AWS. So we have something called VMC on AWS, which is VMware Cloud on AWS, is the strategic product that we go to market with. So yeah, if you have any questions again, guys, please ask me anytime in the chat box or the Q&A. Next slide, Kalani. So I thought there's no better way of like tell you guys about us than giving an example of our customers. So the first one I want to tell you guys is the Brisbane Catholic Education Centre as part of the K-12 program. What the K-12 program is we basically, like other bigger vendors like Microsoft, they support education by providing the software at a discount price. So we have something of our own as well. We commit to assist education by discount our software at a special price. Doesn't mean that, it's cheap. It's still quite expensive, I'd say, which is why we hold ourselves quite high up there as a software vendor. So that's our K-12 program. Kalani, did you want to play the video, or do you want me to just kind of?
I don't think the video is up here.
Okay, no, I don't think there's a video. Yeah. Never mind. So without going into too much details of what the deployment is or what the product that we sell to Brisbane Catholic Education Centre, but basically our software simplifies the way IT works for the school. So you would imagine that there are multiple devices that the school issues for the students, and there has to be a way of managing all of these devices. I don't know if you remember back in high school, for example, you'd have the IT guy that you go to every time you have an issue with your laptops, and if you have to wait for days until you get your laptop back or get something fixed, right? It's very time consuming. So what our software does is basically consolidate that time and consolidate the human resources needed to manage these devices. Normally, provisioning these devices would take, I don't know, days, 2 or 3 days. But with our software, it only takes a matter of hours to, I guess, provision these devices, roll out all the applications on each and every individual of these devices. So that's very powerful, especially for education, where you don't want to think too much about all of these operational details. You want to really focus on what's important, which is education, and that's exactly what we did for Brisbane Education Centre. That's the first example. The second example I want to tell you guys is Commonwealth Bank. It is, like obviously you guys know, it is one of our largest financial institution in Australia. And it's also our largest customer in Australia, Pacific, Japan region to date. It actually took us 18 months to deliver what CBA needed. And the team that did this is at the size of 50 VMware executives and employees that had to strategically plan and action the deal. It's a big team. And why this is so special is because CBA is the leading institution in financial services. So they obviously use the state-of-the-art technology to deliver state-of-the-art technology to customers themselves. So as you can imagine, with the scale of CBA, they would need a system that really works. Like think of the supercomputer that CBA would need to deal with all the customer inquiries. it's huge. So it has to be resilient so that there is guaranteed no downtime. And if there is downtime, how do you manage the, the damage, right? How you manage that damage. So the software that we provide for CBA basically simplifies their infrastructure, the complexity, as well as giving them that resiliency that they really need. And I just want to highlight that obviously it's not an easy job. So VMware really values the teamwork that goes into this transformation.
So just one quick question. With the team that worked on the Commonwealth Bank project, you said it was huge. You said it was over 50 people. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what sort of disciplines were involved? Was it across the whole organization, or was like 3 or 4 specific disciplines in that project, or how many, I guess, were in that project?
Yeah, good question, actually. So VMware is, I guess, a software company, but we are still a sales organization. So we have to have a very strong core sales team. Then we would have to have, by that I mean sales and pre-sales. So that obviously, the technical person and the salesperson, then also a specialist team as well, depending on what the product was required within CBA. So speaking from like a necessity point of view, that would be, I guess, the main team that was involved. But because CBA is so big, it's not just a matter of deploying the products within, the organization, but it's also the strategic deployment of the actual product. Like, what would this product achieve for them in the long run? Because in the end, if our product wasn't making revenue for them, they wouldn't be using it. So that's what I mean by executives. So that would be high level. Like, I think our VP would have to jump in and have that strategic conversation with the CEO of CBA. And then we'd have delivery consultants as well. So that's the person actually deploy the product. And yes, there's also transformational officers as well. So that, in short, I think is all the people that I can think of, but I'm sure there's actually more than that. Yep. Does that answer your question?
Sorry, thank you. I was on mute.
Yeah. Okay, so I have one more example I'd like to share. It's ANZ Bank, so our Australian New Zealand bank. There were a few things that ANZ Bank needed help with from VMware. They, again, want to have a more agile infrastructure that meets the needs of the developers. So why a bank even has developers? Well, if you think about it, you have your applications on your phone, so that has to come from somewhere. And it's actually an in-house developers that actually develop these apps for these financial institutions. And the platform or the infrastructure or the supercomputer that they were using wasn't really working for them, basically, because these applications, they change fast, they need new features all the time. So that's one thing that ANZ wasn't really doing. Another thing is they need to have a better employee experience and to have better support services. So really it comes down to, I guess, how VMware solve these technical issues, but then also how it translates to be able to solve these business issues at the same time. So our software, once again, delivered, but not without a team effort, obviously, helping ANZ Bank automates a lot of the processes. So now it's actually more agile because you don't have to worry too much about the manual processes. And because of that, it actually reduces their operational cost and improve efficiency, as well as the life cycle of the infrastructure itself. So you can really start to see a trend here at VMware, which is the collaboration and the team effort we want to have, or we want to nurture as well as the diversity of thoughts. Yes, so that's all the examples I'd like to share. Hopefully you have a better idea now of what VMware actually does. I mean, it's very hard for someone that hasn't worked with VMware before. It's like very technical, but hopefully the examples have explained to you a little bit of what it actually uh, is from a business perspective. So before I close off my section, at least, I'd like to share a personal story. So this is me, and this is our CEO, Pat Gelsinger. I really have respect for Pat because obviously it's good to work for an organization when you believe in your leaders as well as believe in the vision that they have for the organization. And without explaining what the vision is, the reason why I use this photo is because I'd like to share a personal story. So yeah, I joined as a grad, and while searching for the right job, and completing my last year of uni, I was doing a Bachelor of Science and Commerce. It's not really tech related, and I was just looking through, all the job descriptions out there and what I can apply or what I can do. And I came across VMware and this role called solution engineer. And when I read it, it's like, oh, it sounds really technical, and I don't know anything about VMware either. But then when I read more about it and applied actually, and I came to the interviews, it's actually more than just being technical. It extends more than that particular job description. So what I see when I saw that opportunity, I thought to myself, it's not, it's an exciting challenge to embark on. And technology is something that I think has a very big impact on society, as well as for me as an individual contributor. I see myself as, enabling institutions and organizations using technology. So that's, I guess, how I found out about VMware. And also I really like the culture and all that as well. And what I'm trying to say here is that even if you don't have a technology background, if you believe in it, I think that's all it really takes for you to, I guess, take on the challenge of studying the technology and bringing a different perspective into our organization. For somebody that doesn't know tech, you actually see things and then you see problems from a different point of view. And we actually want that for ourselves, because we have very smart people in our organizations who know the products from inside out, from a technical point of view. So there's no issue with, I guess, go to market from that point of view, but we want people to be able to have the business conversation at the same time. And like I said, translate something technical into something business oriented and using the technology to be able to solve the business problems.